The poisoning on the train to Calais, Paris, 1924. The train left Gare du Nord at night, heading for Calais. In first class, 17-year-old Pierre Durand read calmly. He had no idea that this night would bring him his first mystery away from home. At 10 p.m., British diplomat Sir Henry Bellamy was found unconscious in his cabin. A bluish mark on his lips and a toppled glass of cognac suggested poisoning. The culprit was still on board. In the dining car, Commander Delatour studied a map with a tense expression. Pierre approached and said, "I'm a medical student. Perhaps I can help." Delatour hesitated, but agreed. They began questioning the first-class passengers. Pierre asked the Viscountess what time she had retired to her cabin. She replied it was around 9 p.m. Her lady's companion, when questioned, said she had been dismissed shortly after, at 9:15, and saw no one else. Monsieur Latour, a French banker, said he had been reading in his cabin and heard nothing. Then came George Whitmore, a young man traveling to compete at Wimbledon. Pierre asked about his bedtime routine. Around 9 p.m., Whitmore replied. Monsieur Leclerc entered, carrying the scent of a half-smoked cigar. Pierre asked him what time he had started smoking. "Right after dinner, around 9:30. I like to enjoy my cigar slowly," Leclerc replied naturally. Finally, Jacques Moreau, a biologist, appeared, also holding a cigar. Pierre asked what he had been doing during the time Sir Bellamy was poisoned. "I was smoking the whole time," Moreau answered. "And what time did that start?" Pierre asked. "Exactly 9:30. It's a personal ritual," he replied. Pierre looked closely at Moreau's cigar. It had barely been lit. Calmly, Pierre stood and covered Moreau's hands with a copy of l'illustration. "If you're not the culprit, then you wouldn't mind putting your fingers to your mouth. Even if they were, let's say, blue, right?" he said firmly. Moreau turned pale. He opened his mouth, but said nothing. After a few seconds of silence, and clearly unwilling to touch his own fingers, Pierre lifted the newspaper, revealing clean hands. But it no longer mattered. His behavior had betrayed him. With the help of the conductor and an undercover officer, Moreau was arrested. "But how did you know he was the culprit?" Pierre explained. He claimed he started smoking at the same time as the professor, but his cigar was practically untouched. The difference showed he was lying. And when he hesitated to bring his fingers to his mouth, I was sure he was the one. The train arrived in Calais on time. Pierre received a discreet golden pin from the railway company in thanks. The crossing to England awaited him, and with it, new mysteries. End of part 1. The emerald smuggling in the English Channel. On the foggy morning of September 4th, 1924, Pierre Durand, dressed in his navy blue suit and neatly adjusted beret, arrived at the port of Calais. He was on his way to London. The calm sea, like a painting, stretched out to the horizon. Already aboard the vessel, Pierre was approached by a robust gentleman with a thick mustache, who introduced himself as Mr. Whitmore, a wealthy sport fishing enthusiast and member of a nautical club in Boulogne-sur-Mer. "The weather is perfect for catching European sea bass," said Whitmore as he made his way to the bow. There he cast a squid bait into the sea and watched the waters. Pierre proceeded to the ship's dining hall, where he found Madame Devereux, an elegant widow of high society, Mademoiselle Claire, a young piano teacher with a dreamy air, and Monsieur Delorme, a gentleman with a thin mustache and ornate cane, who claimed to be a diplomat, but observed everything with uncommon attentiveness. The hall was quite impressive. Purple velvet curtains, golden columns, and in the center, a cylindrical aquarium filled with colorful fish. Above, a multicolored glass chandelier reflected lights over the finely set tables. Chef Aubert himself, with his traditional toque blanche and lofty expression, presented the menu. "Tonight, we're serving saffron sauce sole filet, roasted duck with peaches, and cauliflower gnocchi with cranberry sauce." Everyone smiled, but the last dish clearly raised eyebrows. During dinner, a string quartet played softly in the background until the English coast appeared. However, upon arrival in Dover, no one was allowed to disembark. Officers boarded and began a thorough inspection. After a long wait, Pierre approached one of the officers. "Good afternoon. May I ask what you're looking for?" "Emeralds. We believe they're being smuggled aboard the ship." Pierre thought for a moment and said, 3 possible hiding places. Mr. Whitmore's squid bait still in the sea, the crystal chandelier above us, or the pebbles in the central aquarium. But I'd bet they're inside that cauliflower gnocchi with cranberry sauce. The officer raised an eyebrow. Why is that? Pierre smiled. Because a dish like that could only have been designed so that no one would want to eat it. And, in fact, everyone avoided it. The kitchen was searched. Hidden within the gnocchi dough, shaped into the pieces, were small green spheres. They were emeralds. The chef was handcuffed, murmuring, "It was a perfect plan." As he was led away, Pierre commented, "If not for smuggling, the poor culinary judgment alone would have been enough to condemn him." Everyone laughed, relieved. The passengers were cleared to disembark. Pierre stepped onto English soil with a faint smile. End of Part 2. Murder at the Hotel Beresford, London, 1924. 17-year-old Pierre Durand had just stepped into the Hotel Beresford when the shaken receptionist told him a murder had taken place only hours earlier. Scotland Yard was upstairs. Inspector Halloran spotted him in the lobby. "What's your name?" "Pierre Durand." Halloran raised an eyebrow. "So it's you. I heard about Calais and the Emerald case. Let's see what you can do here. If you'll allow it, I'd like to help." The top floor, reserved for a European anatomy seminar, had become a crime scene. Dr. Elizabeth Morel, a French professor, had been found dead in her room. Estimated time of death, between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. All guests were confined to their rooms. Halloran led Pierre through the interviews. Room 208. Dr. Margot Lefebvre, still shaking. Said Elizabeth had stolen her research. Bitter, but no direct accusation. Room 209. Mr. Leonard Briggs, British publisher. Claimed he was in the lobby all evening reviewing proofs. Room 210. Nurse Clara Vernon, nervous. Said she'd been at the Crown and Rose with other seminar guests. Room 212. Henry Marlowe, calm. Stated he was at the pub from 7 to 11 with Sarah Whitmore. Room 215. Sarah Whitmore, poised. Confirmed Henry's story, adding details. Piano music, stout and gin. The moment Henry out of money. Outside, Pierre murmured, "Their accounts match too perfectly." Halloran nodded. A solid alibi. Pierre walked the short block to the Crown and Rose. The landlord remembered the couple at once. "Of course I remember them. The chap ran out of money, and the lady settled the bill. Never seen a fellow look so embarrassed. Lucky for him it wasn't their first date." Pierre frowned. "What do you mean by that?" "They were in 2 nights earlier. Same time. Same drinks." "Interesting," Pierre said. Back at the hotel, he asked Sarah, "Did you leave the pub at any point?" "Just to use the toilet." Another guest said the ladies' toilet was out of order, and everyone queued for the gents. "Did you wait long?" Sarah hesitated. "No, it was a short queue." Pierre folded his arms. "Do you know where else people queue for toilets?" Sarah blinked. "No, in prison, which is exactly where you're going, with Henry." Halloran's officers moved in. As the pair were led away, the inspector asked, "What tipped you off?" Pierre smiled. They rehearsed. They visited the pub earlier, memorized the setting, then performed the split bill routine to create a memorable scene the landlord would recall as their alibi for the night of the murder. But when you invent a lie, you can't predict real-world details. Inventing a broken lady's toilet was one detail too many. End of Part 3. The Fine Taste of Victory. Yorkshire, England. Summer of 1925. The sky was clear, the hills rolled gently, and the small village of Bramblethorpe buzzed with a rare event. The final cricket match between the Bramblethorpe 11 and the neighboring town of West Hollow. Among the guests was Pierre Durand, a 17-year-old Frenchman in a blue beret, invited by his British professor. During the tea break, chaos broke out. The police were called, and organizers announced that no one could leave until questioned. The festive mood turned tense. "The trophy has vanished," shouted the chief judge, a ruddy man with a thick mustache. The crowd stirred. The centuries-old silver trophy, pride of the club, was gone. The podium stood empty, a lace cloth folded over a lonely cushion. Did someone enter the pavilion? All doors were guarded. It must have been stolen, Pierre calmly observed. The tea tent was elegant. White linens, silverware, floral wicker chairs, and fine china. Guests were helping themselves to scones, sandwiches, and fragrant leek and potato soup, served from an ornate silver vessel carried by a young woman from the buffet staff. "This soup is excellent," commented Sir Alister. Pierre frowned. The vessel was unusual. When he served himself, he examined it closely. Delicately sculpted handles, solid silver, an engraved crest. One he had seen that morning. He turned to the young woman with curiosity. "What a refined reception! Even the utensils are impeccable," said Pierre. Then, with a glance, he added, "This tureen is unique. Is it used often at club events?" "Forgive me. Where is it from?" "Oh, we don't usually use it. The buffet's tureen broke earlier, so we borrowed this from the club. I found it on a red cushion in the ceremonial tent. It had no lid, so I thought it would be perfect for soup." Pierre's eyes sparkled. He smiled faintly. With a subtle gesture, he tapped a fork on a crystal glass, producing a chime that drew attention. "Mr. Chief Judge, I believe the missing trophy is now seasoned with leek." Laughter rippled through the room. The young woman blushed. Everyone resumed eating. Some went back for more soup, laughing. The event's organizer, still stunned, added, "Who knows? Maybe soup in the trophy will become a tradition." Sir Alister approached Pierre and asked, "But how, lad? How did you know?" Pierre adjusted his burgundy tie and replied with a calm glint in his eye, "The soup had a fine taste of victory." The end.